You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeotech Podcast, episode 85. I'm your host, Chris Webster, and my co-host, Paul Zimmerman, is off for this episode. Today, I talked to Bill White about the logistics of using tech in a challenging area. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Archaeotech Podcast. I don't have my normal co-host, Paul, with me today because this is a little bit off-schedule recording for us, and I have to nail down Bill whenever I can get him, so we're doing it today. But my guest today is longtime and original co-host of the CRM Archaeology podcast. If you don't listen to that and you're a CRM archaeologist, go check it out at arcpodnet.com/CRM Arc podcast. But anyway, Bill has been working out in the field. He just got back from, as we're recording this, from field school that he's been working on down in St. Croix. And we're going to talk about initially some of the logistics of traveling with technology. So Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. So let's talk about, before we talk about getting like your tech there and working out of an Airbnb and stuff, what kind of tech did you bring on this field school that you normally wouldn't have brought, say, if you were doing a field school, I don't know, 7-8 years ago? What kind of stuff did you bring that was special for this? And then we'll talk about the challenges of getting it there and using it.
Okay, well, so I kind of run my field schools like they are a CRM project. So a lot of the tools that you would use for cultural resources are already the tools that I use out there. So the Trimble definitely, and then also all your hand tools too. So compass, tape measures, and other things. And I guess I'd been spoiled after working for so long in Arizona by having the Trimble and the other GPS stuff work so well that when I got to St. Croix, my strategies that I used to use in Arizona didn't work because I could get satellites, but there was a lot of interference with trees and stuff. And then the island that I was on is in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I think the westernmost edge is very close to a UTM line. So the entire island, sometimes it can snap between UTM zones, or sometimes even though you've told it to be in that zone, the base station that it's actually relaying off of is one that's very close to that line and can kind of make interference, right? So I had a lot of problems using the Trimble out there. But then for this time, I'm kind of trying to make the full switch over to using an iPad to record archaeological stuff. So I've been working with the folks at Codify for quite a while now, and we have a pretty good build. It's like, I'd say 90% what I need it to do. There's only a couple more things that need to be worked out. Now that I'm back in the States, it'll be easier to do. But just as a backup, we were using paper also. And so I was having the students and my other coworkers record most of their information on paper, and then simultaneously at the same time recording stuff with the iPad and Codify, and then trying to time, watch my time to make sure I see how long everything's taking. So the other tech that I brought out there was 2 iPads that had a Codify build on it and a whole other suite of apps that I use for archaeology. We also use digital cameras, so just a digital SLR, but we also had what I think might work better than SLRs in some ways. One of those, a Canon PowerShot, I think. And I can't remember how many megapixels, but it's functional for archaeology. But we also had a waterproof housing on it because some of those folks were also doing their training and certification to become underwater archaeologists, to become certified science divers.
Oh, nice.
So, part of the trip there was getting underwater and scuba diving certifications, and during that they were using that same Canon in a waterproof housing.
Whoa.
So the Canon ends up being a more functional field camera. First of all, it's smaller, so when you're traveling to a place like St. Croix, it's easier to bring. You're shipping all your stuff, so you can fit it in a normal bag, or you can even bring it in your carry-on. But also, you can put a waterproof case on it, which is, I don't know if you can really do that. I use a Nikon, like a D3700, one of the older ones, a digital SLR. And we had one that was like that, but we spent most of the time taking our unit photos with that Canon because it had like a 14 or 18 megapixel camera on it.
Right.
And it was like good enough, right? So that was another bit of tech that we took. And then we had one of the professors from the University of California, Santa Cruz, Cameron Monroe, came out, and he's been
Oh,
doing
nice.
a lot of photogrammetry and drone work. And so it was kind of a crazy thing. The project that I was on was a collaboration between the University of California and historically black colleges in an attempt to increase diversity and also just recruit quality students to the UC system. We we got a grant from the University of California system to bring on 4 undergrads recruited from historically black colleges. And if they pass the full vetting sequence, then they become part of the program. And so this last year was supposed to be between Santa Cruz. Well, it was just Santa Cruz scholars that were there, but half the students went with Cameron to Haiti, and they were working at Sans Souci. Then the other
Nice.
half of the students went with us to Estate Little Princess on St. Croix. Well, there was unrest this summer in Haiti, so their trip in Haiti got cut short by about 2 weeks. And so they instead came over to St. Croix and worked with us.
Hmm.
And in that case, then Cameron also was free to come over and do
Yeah.
photogrammetry and drone work, right? So we did full drone survey of the entire parcel and identified some places where the vegetation's doing some kind of funky stuff, but I haven't looked at the full analysis of that. And then like did 3D modeling of a couple of slave cabins that we have been digging near. And so we have those as 3D models, but also we did photogrammetry so we can actually try to use that to make maps and models, more accurate maps and models than what the drone produces. So there was actually quite a bit of tech, also all the scuba diving tech, right? So,
You had to bring all
buoyancy.
the scuba gear with you?
Nah, we rented most of that stuff, like the
Yeah.
buoyancy control stuff and the tanks and everything. But your other things that you're going to want to need under there, like your dive computer. That's it's keeping track of every dive you have, right? So you
Yeah.
don't really need to carry a paper book. You're recording all your dives on that computer, and not only that, but the thing is actually giving you a much better awareness of how fast you're using oxygen because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like a simple calculation. So it can help you decide how soon you can dive the next day. It can also help you like keep track of all your dives and how many hours you've been down. So it helps you know when you can fly or when you can go up to elevation too, because the nitrogen has to be absorbed by your body or excreted, right?
Right. Right.
So the dive computer and then all the dive lights and any other dive specific anything. So your GoPro, your other cameras and stuff, like all those things. I guess we're a tech heavy smorgasbord to do all this
Yeah.
crazy stuff that we were doing there.
Hey, real quick question on drones, and I don't know if you were aware of this, and I know Cameron was, and I know Cameron. I've actually met him at Santa Cruz, and I was there with Codify, so he's a cool dude. St. Croix is a U.S. territory, so is it still subject to FAA regulations on drones? Was there a problem?
No, there wasn't a problem for us, but yes, it is subject to those regulations. One of the things that we wanted to do was the entire like St. Croix is not a big place, right? So if there's any
Mm-hmm.
archaeologist or any archaeology going down, there's an extremely high chance that you're going to either meet that individual or you probably actually already know that individual, right? So the National Park Service folks are working at an old Danish fort at Christiansted, and
Mm-hmm.
they were doing excavations this summer, and they really want not only drone work, but the folks that are working there on St. Croix are from the southeastern. What is it, SEAC? So
Yeah,
Southeastern Archaeology.
conference is. Yeah, that's what SEAC is.
But yeah, and I don't know how it's related to the National Park Service. Anyway, the folks there are from the Park Service, but they're also part of SEAC, and so they have access to drones, and they want to learn how to do the stuff that Cameron's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cameron teaches that kind of stuff in California, and so if you go to Santa Cruz, you have an excellent chance of learning it. But he'll even come to Berkeley or other, universities, or because it's only like an hour or two away, you can just drive to Santa Cruz when he's doing his thing, and he'll help you. You can bring your drone, you can bring your department's drone, your company's drone, you can borrow one, rent one, right? And he'll help you learn how to fly the patterns, do all the work and everything. Well, they want to do that at Christiansted and the NPS, but it takes months and months to get the certification to be able to work on a national park. And so the best that they could do is come to our site, which is privately owned and see, what we were doing there.
That sucks for them. Yeah, because they could do a lot of good work.
They saw how it works, and
Yeah,
the apps that you should have on your phone, and
right.
how many batteries it takes to fly X amount of acres or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they were unable to actually get their own fort, which is an amazing place, man. That fort at Christiansted. I mean, the Virgin Islands used to be the Danish West Indies.
Mm-hmm.
So from the 1740s, I believe, until 1917, Denmark was administering the entire island.
Mm-hmm.
Well, given the times that it was, and the fact that they're surrounded by seasonal enemies like the English and French and Dutch, they have these forts that were built. So at certain times, the island was owned by the Spanish, and then it was owned by the French, and then it became owned by the Danes. Well, the Danish forts are still pretty much intact, and so there's these 18th century fortresses that are sitting there, and the National Park Service has the one at Christiansted, and they're just they're maintaining it like it's in pretty good shape, the way that
Mm-hmm.
it was when the last garrison was there in the 1800s.
Nice.
Yeah, so to do the scan of that would be amazing. And not only that, but when you're there, you see the interpretive information that this fort was part of a like triangle of other forts, that if anyone tried to sail into the bay, there's like this triangle of death where these forts can fire from
Yeah.
3 different sides, and any armada that tries to sail into the actual city is going to get crushed.
Right.
And so you don't, in that situation, you don't really need a whole bunch of firepower, and you don't really need a whole bunch of manpower, because anyone who walks in there, a few guns on 3 different forts can hit the flotilla or armada from any side, right? And then the ones that are at the front can defend them from even getting there. So by the time you get there, you're already in a crossfire, and then you get hit by 3 forts when you get into the harbor.
Sounds like somebody in their crew read The Art of War. So yeah,
Either that, or it's guys that are like, hey, we got a fort. No, we need 2. No,
we
we
need
need
to.
3, right? Like, what if they get past that fort? Like, well, then we got a bat. What if they get past those 2 forts? Well, hell, nobody's going to make it past 3 forts. So then they just send
Right.
that
Right.
out. 3
Nice.
forts are always better than 2.
That's what I always say. So hey, back to traveling with your tech. Did you encounter any issues? Did you ship anything there ahead of time since you're gonna be there for a while, or did you take it all on the planes with you?
So because it was tech, we took it on the planes. And, also a project like this, it's good to have a total station.
Mm-hmm.
But
Those are heavy.
and also the other thing about the total station is you can't really check it, because it'll get it's calibrated and balanced. So if
Oh
it
yeah.
gets jostled and smashed around and underneath the plane, it's pretty much useless. Like, you carried this expensive device that's not even accurate anymore. So a lot of people get around that by just hiring a local surveying company, and
Mm-hmm.
we might at a certain point do that, because we had the problem of having to go through forest, right?
Yeah.
And the total station, I'm not a total station guru. I just kind of know how to set it up and maybe how to take points and stuff.
I think you
But
just described like most CRM archaeologists that even use a total station. We know the 5% we need to know to make it work.
well, yeah, so that's the other aspect of the mapping thing, because there's gurus and people that have GIS certificates, and people with a PhD in geography that are map specialists, that we just sit out there and dig, and at the data recovery site, and then there's just mapping day, we call it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And one maestro comes with a total station, and they just roll through the site, shooting every unit and every pit in every corner of building, right? And so they just do it all in like 10 hours, and
Yeah.
like your entire project's done, right? Well, that kind of doesn't work so great in the trees, because you have to reposition the tripod,
Yeah.
and every time you do it, there's a slight bit of error, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when we were out there, I had a lot of problems with the Geo. I think I had a Geo XH.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was the 7. I think it was just a Geo XH, right?
Yeah.
We had to dig a shovel probe grid, and I was being lazy, and rather than actually just take a piece of paper or take my tablet and use graphics and make the where each probe's supposed to be, and then do land navigation with a compass and tape to set up that first line or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get in the trees, it's a little bit easier and you're only off by a little bit, right? But you're still true because you can look back and see your pin flags that you've set using your compass, right? That's the standard way. Instead, I tried to create a grid in the Trimble and have it as one of the layers, a background layer that I could turn on and off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good idea, except when you can't really get more than like 5-meter accuracy.
Right.
So when that happens, then you kind of can't navigate to the next point because your Trimble's jumping all around, and the longer you stand there, it doesn't seem to get any better, right? So fortunately, Cameron came and he had a receiver and also the Stadia rod that goes with the mushroom
yeah,
antenna.
That's what I was going to suggest. Yeah, those things are great.
Yeah, so that thing is way better than the backpack antenna that we used to use before. I don't know why we ever even used that backpack antenna now that I think about it. And also just trying to increase your accuracy by just using the white rounded antenna part. It also, that doesn't really increase because it needs to be held kind of level so that the half dome is able to receive the satellites evenly. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just plug it in and then set it on a branch or something like that, it's not actually level. Or if you try to hold it in your hand up in the air, it's not actually in fact level. And so it's not really detecting the satellites, so your accuracy is not necessarily really increasing. When you put it on the Stadia rod that goes with the antenna, you can get down to like 10 centimeter accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's excellent for finding the UTM, longitude and latitude of the unit, but it's still not that great for finding the elevation. And so that's really what we were kind of using the total station for.
Right.
So we ended up using this weird combination of Trimble to mark spots where the tripod was at, and then taking the reading from that thing that's giving us the elevation of that location, and then going back in and like changing the actual UTMs because the total station wasn't in the actual right location. As we move it each time, the like 2 or 3 centimeter error or 3 or 4 centimeter error, you move it 3 or 4 times, it transmits like 20 centimeter error. But the Trimble's giving you 10 centimeter with the antenna and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just change its UTMs, but keep the elevation.
Yeah, stuff you might not think about when you're first coming out there your first time. the gear that you need just to get the accurate points,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds like a good point to take our first break, and we will come back and continue this discussion about tech in the field and in remote locations. Back in a second.
Are you interested in history?
Or knitting?
Well, we are too. I'm Heather Boyd.
And I'm Rachel Roden. And we have a new podcast called Historical Yarns that brings the two together.
Each season will have 6 episodes where we dive into the history of a knitting technique and knit a project designed by one of us using that technique.
So join us for Season 1 on August 31st, 2018 here on arcpodnet.com/historical yarns. Happy knitting!
Welcome back to Archaeotech episode 85, and we're talking with Bill White about the logistics of traveling with technology. And Bill, we've talked about a lot of data collection that you did there, from iPads to Trimbles to, other devices, trying to collect an amazing amount of data, including drone images and all that stuff. Let's start with the iPads. Did you have a way to back up your data in the field? Probably once you got back to I think you said you were staying at an Airbnb, but did you have a way to back up your data like in the field? Did you think about that, or did you just wait to do it at the end of the day? Or did you even do it at the end of the day? How'd you do it?
So I did do it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I wasn't so concerned about it while I was actually out in the field. The app that I was using from Codify, when it's actually on and working, it's saving itself every 5 seconds to its own self, right? So on the tablet, it's saving itself as you work, right? So at the end of the day, you basically just save all the saves, and then you have to sort by, what the most recent one is, and that's your actual data, right?
Gotcha.
So, and also, in all fairness, I am an Apple hater. I'll admit it freely.
That's not fair at all.
The iPad is actually a really stable device, right? I mean, I've seen my kids throw an iPad like it was a frisbee, and pour a sippy cup full of Kool-Aid right into it. No, we don't feed kids Kool-Aid anymore, right? It's organic sugar water.
Yeah, right.
Nobody
Grass-fed
feeds.
Kool-Aid.
Nobody lets a child have Kool-Aid anymore. Yeah, but all right. So anyway, I've pulled my iPad in its OtterBox case out of a sippy cup in the back seat of my minivan, uh, and it still worked for years afterwards, right? So I'm not afraid of what the world can give, dish out to an iPad, especially if it's in an OtterBox. I started off with a LifeProof, but the LifeProof just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't give you it doesn't have that stand on it and stuff. I know it's waterproof and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
all the other things that you get with the OtterBox just makes it kind of a better case. I mean, it's not waterproof, but it's water resistant, and it rains probably every day in the summer in St. Croix. So, so every other day for a little while it'd rain.
Yeah.
And, you just finish recording your point or whatever that's going on, as long as it's first starting, and then throw the iPad in your backpack and you're good. So,
right.
And I wasn't doing anything silly like leaving it out while people were sifting dirt to just let dirt get in the iPad. I mean, I kept it in my backpack and everything, but other than that, I didn't baby it.
Well, that's typical stuff you do with a clipboard anyway. I mean, if I see a clipboard that's getting dust all over it from somebody screening, I mean, I'm going to move it,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I didn't treat it like it was anything special. I just used it in the field. And going to the backup thing. So because it was such a robust device, and I mean, this is like we were using it out there, but I've been trying to work with these guys from Codify and using other app constellations of tap forms and activated PDFs and stuff like that for a couple of years now. So I'm pretty firm and okay with using an iPad outside. So I wasn't really worried about backing it up every single day. And actually, some days, because I was doing many other tasks, I probably didn't actually record anything with the tablets. Stuff was getting recorded on paper forms. I was doing a million other things. And so some days I actually didn't even record anything. So there was nothing to back up. But I backed it up probably, every 2 days, definitely once a week for sure, but every 2 or 3 days when I was recording excavation stuff. And it did fine. You can back it up fine using, oh gosh, I don't even remember I think it's called iMazing or whatever, because I hate iTunes. So I got some other kind of, iMazing. So iMazing is what I use to move my files off of the tablet onto a PC. So I don't have a Mac either, and it worked fine. I was able to upload new builds of the app because I could save. So I could save it off of the tablet onto the computer. Then if I had internet, I could save it to our shared Google Drive folder if I needed to have anything done, like a new build or any kind of kinks worked out of the build, right?
So they're doing active development while you're down there, just kind of like responding to things that you need in the field.
Well, they're not doing it for everybody.
Well, no, I'm just saying in this case.
Yeah. Yes. So if I didn't ever actually, the last build that I downloaded was one from the airport in San Francisco, and then I uploaded it. They sent me a video of how to upload it, right? So that was like my last secured internet access. I uploaded it onto the tablets. It had all my previous information from my other features and other things that I had recorded before. It had any kind of affixed graphics images, so any kind of sketch maps or plan views that I'd done, they were all in there too. So all the stuff was all backed up, and then I put it in the file, and then they sent the new build. I uploaded that, and it just populated it with my most recent where I was just at, and then I went out to the field. And I was kind of worried about that too, because I was leaving California for St. Croix, which has not fully recovered from the hurricane,
right?
Without the most recent build of Codify on there, and I was kind of worried, but it worked fine.
Okay.
It all went right on there.
Nice. And what was your power situation out there? How were the iPads handling the power today? Do you have external batteries to go with them?
So I do have a Goal Zero with a Yeti. I can't remember what the Yeti is, but it's like it has a standard plug-in, but also USB plug-in too.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
It can be powered from the sun, but you can also power it from the wall.
Right.
So it takes 1,000,000 years to power it from the sun, because I've done it before. I think that you're better off, like, if you have an iPad or you have a phone or something like that, and you really are desperate for power, and you've got the solar panel and the the charger out there and the charger doesn't have any power, just plug the device right into the solar panel and direct charge it, because while you're digging and working, it's getting juice. And I've done that many times. Like I used to have a smaller, well, I still have it actually, Goal Zero solar panel that I would use to keep MP3 players and phones and other stuff. When I did CRM, a lot of times I would load our sites and everything as KMZ or KML files so that I could use them in Google Earth, so that every person basically has a GPS. Even though there's only one thing recording the points, everybody can navigate from unit to unit because they all have it shared on their own phone.
Right.
But if that drinks power to be using that display, so I just plug my phone right into the solar panel. Well, you can also plug it into the power pack, which I carried with me, external. And that thing's awesome, but it really does better if you charge it from the wall because it only takes a few hours. And then you've got like enough to power up 2 laptops from 0 to full.
Nice.
It's basically like I'm bad. I tested the thing by traveling with my kids, and when the tablets are getting low, plugging in the iPad, so they're just like using that thing as an external power source to just see like how far, like how long can I roll with an iPad? Like how much power will the thing give me if I charge my iPad all the way and a kid watches cartoons? How many hours will I get total? If anyone wants to know, the Nintendo Switch sucks too much power. So you won't get any power really. That thing is too powerful. But an iPad or a laptop, it seems like you can get 15 hours or so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just, you're already going to get like 7 or 8 hours of moderate brightness use, streaming movies and stuff like that. And then if you plug it into the power pack, it'll give you another 5-8 hours more, depending on how soon you plug it in or how often you're using it, right? So, my kids can play games and watch all the shows they want, and it can last from here to Idaho.
That's I can't say enough about external batteries. I actually haven't used solar panels too much, once or twice when I was like borrowing them, but I've been using the Zero Lemon. I've got 2 Zero Lemon 30,000 milliamp batteries, and I swear to God, those things, they take so long to lose their charge. Like even when they're just sitting there and you're not using it, it's got 4 little lights on it, and those segments, they're just always lit up. And like the iPad Mini, I want to say it's around a 4,000 or 5,000 milliamp battery in there, and I can't remember exactly. Oh, here, I just found something as I was looking this up. 4,490 milliamp hours. So if you have, for example, a 30,000 milliamp external battery, that's 6 charges on an iPad Mini, 6 full charges from 0. So you look at that, whatever battery you had, Bill, you can look at what's the total milliamp hour on it, and then you'll know how many charges you're going to get for your devices, which I think is a smart calculation to make if you're going to be in energy deficient situations. So you need to know, how long am I going to go between full charges on this thing? And not only that, but if I took that 30,000 milliamp like down to St. Croix and I used it and I didn't charge it up every night, but I was using it during the day, if you wait for it to fully discharge, that thing takes hours to fully charge, even on the wall, because it's such a big battery. So that's another consideration to take into account. But it's nice that you're using the solar panels, so you can at least maybe trickle charge those throughout the day, at least maybe keep them steady or something like that. I like that idea a lot. What was your living situation down there? What kind of internet and, getting things off site and stuff like that? What was that situation?
Yeah. So the biggest problem is the Airbnb paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so cheap it can't be true, right? It's too cheap to be, it's too good to be true, right? Well, hell, that is Airbnb's biggest obstacle, right? And I was one of the Airbnb originators, started using them and loved it, because I have a family and everything. You get a kitchen a lot of times and multiple rooms with an Airbnb. So when you have a baby, that's worth gold. You'd have to end up getting a suite or go to bed at 7:30 when the baby goes to bed, right? So you got to have multiple rooms. And so from the beginning, I was an Airbnb disciple and also VRBO, vacation rental by owner. I was down with both of those. But there's just like in the last probably 2 years, there's been a couple of situations where the Airbnb is just straight up lying. They say they have amenities and they just don't. And there's too many of us that are out here, and also the way Airbnb is set up. first of all, the people who are running the thing are not hotel or, they're not hoteliers. They're not running hotels. So there's no recourse for anything. You just call a number and hope that they're off work in time to get you hot water or fix the leaking roof, right? So those are two shortcomings. But the other one is deceit to the point where it might actually be fraud of just misrepresenting your place. So the key essentially is if it's the cheapest place, it will not be as good as it looks. There's a reason why it's way cheaper than everything else. So basically never choose the cheap one. A lot of times if you're spending for the high end one, you could just basically get a hotel. So might as well just get the hotel, because the second that there's a stain on one towel, somebody runs in there and gives you another towel, right? So if you're paying for a hotel, there's people on staff that, 9 times out of 10 will actually help you, unless once again, you're at the cheapest hotel, then you're already in trouble anyway. So you try to aim for the middle, but there's a lot of places in the middle that are not good. And, in St. Croix, we had places that were structurally good, but just the internet, the way they had the thing set up was not designed for every room. The air conditioning was not, cutting it in most of the places. I mean, in St. Croix, basically, you get air conditioning most of the time, at least in Airbnbs or people's apartments. You get air conditioning in your bedroom, but you don't really get it in the common areas. And it's kind of all these signs everywhere, like turn off the air conditioning, turn off the fan, don't let any air get into the common space, right? You're just supposed to let the air flow through the apartment, which for the most part, if you're from a cold weather climate, you're going to be boiling in these places.
Yeah.
But if you ever have been where it's kind of warm, it's going to be like 80 degrees, which you're going to be warm. But if you're sitting there with shorts on, you'll be fine. It's not like you're going to die because your apartment's at 80 degrees. And if you're suffering, go into your room. You could have that thing down to like 60 if you really wanted to, right? But, when it comes to the internet, it's like not always guaranteed. Sometimes they say they have internet and they just straight up don't have it, and they already have your money. Sometimes they said that they have internet, but internet in different places means different things. We're all spoiled in the mainland to have, we may complain about or Comcast and AT&T and all the, travesties that they do to us. But in all fairness, 80% of the time to 90% of the time, your internet is working faster than most of the people in the United States. There's people who live in rural areas who have no internet. So that was the conundrum of trying to do work in St. Croix. The internet and the phone reception was not good. And so, there's some who might be listening to this podcast that would just be shaking their head like, oh my God, spoiled baby, you can't organize this kind of stuff. It's not that I can't organize it or whatever. It's that we're just so used to using these workflows that require stuff like email, text messaging for crews when you can't see those people. Hell, even actually just making a cell phone call to someone to ask them, did you want all these waters filled or what, right? You got to walk all the way back up there. All those things slow things down just a tiny bit. But then when it comes to having, if you were to take this codified system to the full level, like a CRM company, and you were to have people back at the base that were correcting your work in real time or creating the report in real time based on the information you recorded in the field, that's not really, you can back up all your data. And then when you have Wi-Fi, you can all night long sit there until your Dropbox updates for that backup to actually, in fact, be in the cloud. But stuff just doesn't move at the same speed. And it's not that we can't do archaeology without that kind of stuff. It's just that you're used to it. And if you try to take a technologically based approach and go to an analog place, you're going to have to do analog stuff, but you brought none of your analog things with you.
Right. Well, I think this is almost a good place to stop here. We talked about a lot of stuff, but I've just got one final question in the last couple of minutes of this segment. You're going back there, presumably for the next few years, right? So you're going back there. What lessons did you take from this year that you're going to apply to next year? What are you going to do differently? What are some of the big things that you're going to do differently?
Okay, when it comes to tech, I'm going to definitely I'm going to bring my own antenna and stadia rod for the Trimble. I was rescued by Cameron coming. Otherwise, my points would have been wildly incorrect.
Yeah.
So I'll still do a similar approach, but just have my own equipment already built.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is just kind of more leadership kind of stuff where, you just talk to individuals in the morning instead of, just having a morning meeting that's all about going digging and this and that and where we're going to go for lunch and stuff like that. Have the meeting actually be about kind of the overall approach and start from go from specific to general. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd like for you guys to dig these 3 probes. If you look at the map, they're all in a row. We're finding a lot of artifacts from this time period, or we're finding charcoal or something that we want to investigate more. And I want these 2 teams to work on these 4 probes until they're all done, if that takes you a day or so that people know where to go next. They don't have to just kind of stand there or try to text you and then the text doesn't go through and they're like, well, I didn't know what I was supposed to do next, right? Those are the basic strategies that you'd use when you don't have like a walkie-talkie or any kind of connection with your crew. You would just tell them, I want you to go to this zone. I want you to dig shovel probes. They've all been marked, and go here and there, and I'll see you in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Those just clear communication type stuff.
Yeah.
That's not really bringing another thing. That's just going back to the old days when we didn't have any of this stuff.
Back to the basics.
Yeah, and rather than relying on the Trimble and other stuff to actually do land navigation, I ended up ultimately just doing compass tape and taking bearings and just doing land navigation stuff, basic stuff.
Yeah.
In order to get the last rows of probes laid out so that people could dig shovel probes. So I mean, just basically go old school when it comes to doing things that require the GPS, and then bring a better GPS so that I only have to take points, but the points I take are more quality, more accurate.
The more detailed morning briefing, that's what we would call it in Civil Air Patrol. I learned a lot from the military, especially even Civil Air Patrol. I mean, we do a lot of things. We're all volunteer organization, but we do a lot of really official things that I take and apply to my own, business side. But that's a really great thing, because what you're doing, without calling it that, but what you're doing is you're sharing some of that big picture. You have the big picture. You're the person running the project. You have the big picture. And we don't often put enough importance on that, I think. And even, I mean, especially from a student standpoint, you have to tell students what to do, because they're not to the point where they can just take a charge and say, well, I think we're going to do this next. If they can't get a hold of you, they need to know exactly what to do next, right? But even in a CRM company, we closely guard, for some reason, that big picture sometimes. And maybe it's laziness. Maybe it's just like, we don't have time to give you the big picture, so just go do those transects and shut your mouth. But I mean, giving people that big picture, I think, gives 2 things. One, it gives them a little bit better understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it. So if they do encounter something that's out of the ordinary, they may know how to better handle it, because they have the big picture. They know what the overall goals are, at least for the day, if not for the project. But also, it gives them a little bit more credibility. It gives them a little, not credibility, but it gives a little more credit to them as scientists and professionals. And I personally think is more likely to make them respect you a little bit more and want to work for you and do things. So I think that's a great thing to do on any project, not just your next field school.
Exactly. And it's not like we didn't do that stuff.
Sure. Just more of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, just more of it. So
Yeah.
that they actually, they can function on their own. They don't really actually, in fact, need us to be there
Yeah.
every single second. That really helps. That helps them stay busy, and it alleviates a lot of your leadership requirements, because you know that, well, this person's been told that they should be doing that. So when you get over there and you see that they're doing it, you're kind of like, well, that makes sense. I asked them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a strange reason why they're doing something else. You did it because they're part of the team and they know what to do next.
All right, well, that's it for this segment. We're going to come back with the App of the Day segment and then a little bit extra on top of that. So we'll be back just in a second. Hey everybody, Chris Webster here. I wanted to take this time to let you know that if you're listening to this in real time, coming up September 7th to the 9th, 2018 at the Desert Studies Center, this is in Southern California, is something called Desert Monarchs, and it's bighorn sheep and native cosmology, taking place at Zyzx, ZZYZZX, Zyzx. Join archaeologist Dr. Alan Garfinkel and noted desert bighorn sheep conservationist Carlos Gallinger for a deep dive into the mysteries of the bighorn sheep habitat and the related native religious cosmology and rock art. So this is a several-day course, and you can check it out. Please go over to the website to register at carockart.org/events. That's carockart.org/events for this multi-day event that you're going to really enjoy. This network is listener-supported. We're trying to move away from paid advertising while also creating new shows and supporting the ones we have. The APN has never and will never make a serious profit on our podcast. Every little dime we make goes back into the network and improving show quality. So become a member today at www.archpodnet.com/members to show your support, get some extras, and be a benefactor for archaeological education. Members get stickers, a coffee mug, a t-shirt, bonus content, early access to episodes, a private Slack team to talk to other members and the hosts, and full access to training on Team Black over at arccert.black. So check out our memberships at www.archpodnet.com/members today and support archaeological education. That's www.archpodnet.com/members. Now back to the show. All right, welcome back for the App of the Day segment for episode 85 of the Archaeotech podcast. And I'm going to go first. And since Bill is talking about tech and internet access and dealing without and with minimal, things that we're used to with our everyday lives, I'm going to bring something up that might be of help to CRM archaeologists or anybody traveling whether you're traveling on a plane or, somewhere where you're internet challenged, but might have some time. Because I know like in a situation that Bill's in, let's say the house he was in didn't have internet access and they had to go to a cafe or some sort of internet cafe, or maybe just like a coffee shop or whatever the case may be in town for a few hours a night to do their uploading and things like that. Well, you might be able to want to download a little bit of entertainment too. So my app of the day is actually the Netflix app, only because of a recent update they did. So if you have a Netflix subscription, or if you don't, I think it's like $10 a month or cheaper, a little more, depending on your plan. But they added a new feature. So they've had the ability to download things like movies and some TV shows. They have to have the license rights for it. But you can download them to your device when you have solid internet. But one kind of cool feature that they started, and I'm not really sure what the applicability of this is really, but maybe it's just I can only do these things in like 2-episode chunks or something like that. Let's say that's how much time you have every night for the internet. While you're doing other stuff, you just turned on your tablet and said, here, you do your thing while I'm going to do my thing on my laptop when I'm going to work. And then when you go home at night, you have a couple, TV shows or movies to watch. If it's TV shows, one of the cool things they did was, let's say you downloaded 3 episodes, the next 3 episodes of whatever show you're watching. When you get into internet next time, if you've watched all 3 of those episodes, it will download the next 3 and stop right there. But it'll just automatically download the next 3. It'll remove the other 3 from your device and download the next 3. So then you're ready to go. Let's say you downloaded 4. Well, it'll download the next 4 episodes and then remove the old ones off your device. If you didn't watch 2 of them, it will just download 2 more to make sure you've got 4 more episodes. So that's kind of a cool deal, especially if you're in a situation where you've only got internet for a short period of time. You have to go somewhere to get it, while you're working. Then you can have a little bit of, relaxing entertainment time at the end of the night, maybe. I mean, you probably should be hanging out with your fellow crewmates, but sometimes they just get on your nerves. I don't know, Bill can agree with that.
You do that at work.
Right? Sometimes you just want some alone time.
Yeah, they're like, man, are you sure you don't want to hang out some more? And I'm kind of, it's so late, 6:00, boy, tired.
Nice. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it was something I just heard about. I think they send us emails or whatever, and it seemed like something that could be useful for internet challenge situations where you still want a little bit of entertainment. So, Bill, what have you got?
Yeah, I actually fully endorse that one too. I didn't think about Netflix, but that's a lifeline, right? Because you can, when you have a bunch of internet, you can just slam Netflix for whatever reason, Amazon Prime Video. You can download the stuff that you've actually bought on Amazon and watch that ad nauseum, but they limit you on how many episodes of other stuff you can add. So you can't really, I was trying to watch the old America documentary from the History Channel, and I could only, download like the first 6 episodes for whatever reason. And they're saying, oh no, you've got too many. And, I also, it's a family account, so my kids have stuff downloaded and stuff, but Netflix doesn't seem to really limit you. I haven't seen a limit. So I just try to plan how many hours worth of watching will I need, and then just download, a bunch of whatever season or series you're watching, a couple movies and some other stuff. And then, you're good for a long time. And if you have the other thing that's cool about Netflix is if you have any kind of internet, even if it's like the sketchiest amount, it'll stay active in your app. It's only when you like get on the plane
Mm-hmm.
and you're using, airplane mode or whatever, that's when they start to say, oh, you've only got 8 days left or something like that on your whatever you're watching, right?
Right.
So yeah, Netflix, I endorse it. Download as much as you possibly can.
Nice.
Yeah, no, when it comes to archaeology, I don't have any new apps to endorse, but the old tried and true document use apps came through really big time because
Mm-hmm.
we had folks that had a field manual that was available on their phone or whatever, but if they wanted to really check it out, how to characterize soils, a little bit about how to use the app, how to dig units and stuff, all that was stored as a PDF in iBooks. And then I also filled iBooks with other articles that had to do with artifacts from St. Croix, because I'm trying to learn all this stuff. Some of the colonial stuff, because I did historical archaeology, is not that foreign. I mean, I need to know the new ware types, but Afro-Caribbean ceramics, Native American ceramics, that's a whole new culture area. So I needed to download all those dissertations and articles, and you can store them all in iBooks. I know you can store them all in Dropbox, but with iBooks, it's actually on your tablet. So
Yeah.
Dropbox, you're kind of updating things, and if you forget and you don't have any reception or whatever, those huge dissertations, you're not going to really get them. But if they're already in, and you have to get them into iBooks, so you're going to need internet in the first place. But once they're in, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can always refer folks. You can just open it up and show them ceramics that oh, well, someone already found this at this other site. Here's a CRM report. Just check this out. And like while you're in the field, you're opening it up and showing them the ceramics that you're seeing. So I use that one a lot. And then the Kindle app. So after you've watched all those episodes and you're totally bored to death, you can read, right?
What?
So Kindle, the Kindle app. I mean, it's pretty cool. If you've got books and stuff that you are trying to read, you will need to activate them by when you have internet, but your entire library of Kindle books is available. Not only that, but if you've got internet, you can borrow for free other people's Kindle books. So you can go into Kindle and borrow another book that someone else is telling you is great. So while we were there's some books that I had that I loaned out to others that had Kindle, and you can read them on your phone and all other stuff. But then there was books I borrowed as well from them because we were hanging out reading a lot of the time.
Nice.
So those are the two apps that I say. Kindle was great, and iBooks. I know that there's other ones, Google Drive and Dropbox and other ones. So you might be kind of duplicating your stuff. But given the way that Apple likes to have their own environments, if you use the Apple app on the Apple device, it's like it seems like it's designed and works better than if you try to do it through Dropbox or PDF Reader or something like that.
Yeah, I will say Dropbox has the ability to mark a file or folder for offline use, so it will download to your device, but they don't make that easy, and it resets sometimes. So
yeah,
that's the big thing. If you don't check that right before you go out into the field in your non-internet situation, and Dropbox has updated and reset all the settings and all your stuff is gone, it's still on Dropbox, but it's not downloaded anymore, yeah, you'll be totally hosed.
So that updating and resetting is the reason why I can't say Dropbox.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the solution because of that. And that's burned me many times when I was using my phone and I had stuff on there that I needed to access in the field. And then for whatever reason, it just somehow wasn't there, even though I've told that folder to be available on my phone. I mean, that's the reason why I just can't endorse that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've got the Kindle app, then you may as well download The Field Archaeologist Survival Guide by Chris Webster and Small Archaeology Project Management by Bill White. And Bill's got other books on there too. You may as well have them.
My stuff's only $5 too, so yeah.
Right?
You always have that there.
Put those in your archaeology necessities folder, and you're good to go.
After you've finished every single episode, then you can read my book.
That's right.
Or Chris's book, yeah.
All right. So one thing we're going to wrap up with here, which is something we probably don't talk about enough on the Archaeotech podcast. You know, we're big tech fans here. Paul and I are, and we talk about this stuff all the time. But sometimes you have to back away a little bit and examine what you're using, why you're using it. You know, what is it good for, and go from there. But then there's also other effects of using technology. And one thing Bill and I were talking about, and I know this is probably, you know, more important for you, Bill, because you do have kids, you know, so you've got to decide, you know, what kind of technology are they going to use? How is it going to affect them? What things are you going to let them look at? What things are you not going to let them look at? But not even kids. I mean, adults alone. You know, I've been on projects where people are just absorbed in their phones when they're not doing anything. I've been, you know, you see that on the street. You see people walking around and they're just absorbed in their phone. And sometimes it's social media, sometimes it's other stuff. But I think the way I'll kick off this discussion is from a tech standpoint. If you were, let's say you're working on a project, I don't care if it's a field school or a project or whatever, and you're handing people the technology, you're saying, here's the tablets, here's the phones, whatever you're using. Are you likely to put stuff on there like social media applications and entertainment applications that they can use when they're not working? Or is it just like all business with those tablets all the time and let them do that stuff on their own side, regardless of whether they're addicted to it, which we'll get to?
The tablets that I have at my house, they have social media stuff on them. However, I do have to restrict, you know, my kids, they're not really old enough to be messing with social media, but it would still be available. And it's not like I'm doing anything crazy, but they would still just be around social media. And the reason why I think that we need to talk about this kind of stuff is because over the years, and I've just become increasingly aware of it, so many people are addicted to cell phones. I mean, it is actually, in fact, a psychological disorder. There is cell phone addiction, and I'm seeing it at a high level these days, to the point where individuals can't. In the past, I've seen people essentially not working because they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people supposedly surveying and walking through the desert when they're just on their phone and they're texting and they're still walking, which means they could be just walking over artifact. Like, they're basically not even working. People sitting at their
Right.
desk on their phone, monkey time, doing stuff. I mean, I've been guilty of it plenty myself, but it kind of came to a head when I was watching some videos by this guy, Jaron Lanier, who he says, I didn't research the guy. I have no idea if he's a crackpot or not. Most people on the internet are crackpots, right? I'm on the internet, right? You guys are listening to this. How can I
We're all
assure
crackpots.
you I'm not a crackpot, right? But anyway, he was talking about how the guy worked in the tech industry, and he was talking about how now social media is designed to basically give you, you know, dopamine and other kind of endocrine hits through your interaction, and the machine doesn't actually. So we all know that it's designed to give us more of what we want, which is essentially all the stuff we interact with, so that we get more of what we're already, you know, interacting with. But behind that system is another system of the machine trying to calculate how quickly you interact with something and for how long, right? So Facebook or Twitter doesn't actually, in fact, understand that, you know, that it's doing anything wrong. It just has algorithms that's designed to detect which things you're interacting with, how long you interact with them, and, you know, how quickly you make a response when you see that. And then it gives you more of
Mm-hmm.
that. So if you've ever noticed, I mean, everybody knows around political campaign time, there's these huge Thanksgiving dinner style blowouts between people who have been, you know, checking out these social media posts to the point where they're actually enraged over hypothetical, mysterious, you know, Forbes magazine articles, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that other people have said in blog posts, right? And so part of that is a side effect of someone getting that message so many times that it's been drilled into their head, and that kind of emotional response of anger or excitement or whatever has been activated so many times that that person is actually craving it. The social media is giving you that kind of effect. You may not know that your brain is being changed to desire to be on social media all the time, but in the background, the people who are trying to sell advertising, the people who are trying to get you to use more Facebook, more Twitter, those guys are all really aware of everything that you're doing, and they're setting it up so that the machine gets you more and more addicted. Where this comes into play in the field is where people, yeah, just like any addiction, right? It's called just use, moderate use, until it starts to affect your life. And that's where it comes into play when individuals, the second any Slack, anything is happening, phone out, social media on. Like, I mean, it's amazing to see how quickly someone will barely even stop finishing excavating, stand up, take a drink of water, and phone out. And it's not, and I mean, I guess we're using the phones for many other things, right? We were using them to find, music, to check those messages that are actually important, even stuff that's
Right.
not work related, important messages from people who are not there that are asking you questions. That's another form of communication, right? A phone call that you didn't quite get that you need to actually answer or listen to the message. Those kind of things are not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the Pavlovian response where, activity not happening, phone out, immediately electronic dopamine going into you. And that, as a parent, we monitor our kids and try to manage how much they watch, and they probably watch more TV than, they're supposed to, but they watch way less than I used to, right? And they don't
Right.
have social media, and they're not really around social media accounts, right? But for them, the cartoons and the screens, that's already the gateway that will lead them to social media, where they'll get to the point where I see folks on campus all the time. I mean, they're not really communicating with other people. They're constantly on whatever their choice social media thing is, and all that stuff is it's affecting everybody. So,
I think one of the things for me is how social media, especially like Facebook and really all of them though, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, so it's kind of the big three right now. And then there's of course others, but Facebook in particular, I use Facebook. I don't really use my own personal side of Facebook too much. Like I don't post a ton over there, and what I usually do post is like cross posted from Instagram or something if I just put up a picture. But so I don't interact that much over there. But I do have I have 4 business pages on Facebook. So from a business standpoint, if you were to talk to any business owner at any point in time in history and say, how quickly should you respond to a customer's inquiry, or how quickly should you respond to a client, they will say as soon as possible. Like that's just customer service, right? Like you handle your customers' needs as soon as possible. So Facebook does this thing, and I don't know if you manage a page or not and can see this, but Facebook does this thing where, they have the badge response time, and which I get from a customer service standpoint, but they, if you respond to a message I think it's within 30 minutes or something like that, and you do it consistently, you turn on this badge that says, oh, they have a fast response time. If you want to message this business or this page, really, assuming it's a business, they're going to get back to you as quick as they possibly can. So, you can feel good messaging them. If I were to go to a business and I wanted to send them a message and I don't see that badge, or I see the response time is 24 to 48 hours, maybe I'll bother sending them a message. Maybe I won't if I have a question that needs to be answered like right now. But the thing is, that's mixed in with my personal Facebook. It makes you feel like that response time needs to be for everything.
Yeah, but I mean, if you own a brewery and you drink beer, how do you separate the fact that you're drinking from the time that you're actually testing it for beer, right? I mean, I guess we could say 9 to 5, I'm actually brewing beer, and then after that, I'm just drinking beer. And if I drink beer during the time that I'm brewing, I'm actually in fact working, right? And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are saying. While I'm scrolling up and down senselessly on Instagram because I'm at work, I'm still working, but I'm not really actually digging. But there's not time for me to dig, or I'm supposed to be monitoring, but geez, this is just so boring. I'm on the internet. I mean, yeah, we want our businesses to respond quickly. As you drive down the street, look and watch how many people are on their phone when they're supposed to be driving. That's not, you're putting yourself at risk, right? How many people who are walking around or standing at the subway or the bus station are working while they're on their phone, right? Or if you're on the subway, I'm not saying spy on other people. Just look down. You'll be able to see what kind of app, the interface, you know what it looks like. How many of those people are doing that for work?
Right.
A very small percentage. So the problem when it comes to archaeology is you're missing stuff, essentially. Even if you've been around for a long time, there's no way you know all the archaeology, right? So if you're not paying attention to what you're doing when you're doing archaeology, are you really even doing it?
Right.
I'd say it's even more tragically worse for a student that's supposed to be learning about archaeology, even if they're in class, to not be aware of what's going on in class because they're on social media and stuff. Not only are you missing stuff, you're also
Mhm.
kind of not growing the synapses that you need to even be able to observe. So if you're digging and you're not sitting back and looking at the dirt and kind of looking at the way things are going and asking other people about what they're digging and stuff because they're on their phone, you don't want to be rude to them. You're not really getting that experience of being an archaeologist. You're not really growing, or it'll take you way longer. Those old
Mhm.
guys may not have had all those tech, devices and stuff, but they set the framework for what we do. Those soils were determined by people a long time before us. A lot of those early, ceramic typologies and stuff, those were set by people a long time before us, and they get advanced by people who are not on their phone, who are focused on what they're doing. If you're out in the field, I, I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't on your lunch look at Facebook or Instagram. What I'm saying is, if all of the time that you're at work, in the field doing work, or in the lab or anywhere else, big chunks of that is you on your phone, not only are you kind of not really working, you're fueling the addiction. And that doesn't go away when you walk off the clock. When you get in the car and go to your house, you're still addicted. And over years, you get to the point where you're like many people. The only thing they can talk about is stuff that they saw on Facebook. The only thing that they can relate to, the people that they know on Facebook. The only people that they even know anymore are the people that they connected in quotation marks on social media.
Yeah, it's a tough problem, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody. It applies to a lot of people, but I think like any addiction, it's either going to hit you or it's not. I mean, I enjoy a good bourbon, a glass of wine. Not too much of a beer drinker, but there was a long time when I wouldn't even. I would really treat that stuff with, kind of a distance because I have some really strong alcoholics in my family. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to hit me or not. Am I going to be an alcoholic if I just drink this stuff? But turns out I'm probably not because I actually prefer like a nice cold Coke Zero to anything else. So I can have a glass of bourbon and then stop there, so I know that that's not going to affect me. But like anything else, you could get addicted to this stuff, and there's warning signs and things like that out there. And if you're avoiding your close friends and family and only paying attention to what's in front of you on your phone or your tablet or computer, then that's probably time to take a hard look at it. Although I also think, Bill, that as we're going way over on this segment, but I also think that it could be indicative of another problem too, especially when you're talking about people going to work, people at work. In those cases, if you're sitting at home and your family's playing a board game, but you're trolling Facebook on your laptop on the couch, that's a problem. But yeah, but when we're talking about, I think we nailed it in that case. But when we're talking about people doing this at work, whether it's an archaeology job or you're sitting on the train, heading into campus, and you see all these people just on their phones and they're doing stuff, and you look like you said, and they're not necessarily checking email, they're on Facebook, they're doing whatever. That kind of tells me that, it's filling a hole that these people have in their lives, whether it's the actual social media, the endorphins, like you said, whether it's the people that they want to be around that aren't around them, that are on these social media sites, they'd rather be near them. I mean, take archaeology for me. I don't really hang out with archaeologists here in Reno. They all do their own thing. They're in companies. I'm not with a company. I've got a couple friends here that are archaeologists, but all of my archaeological interactions happen on the internet. They happen on Facebook. They happen on Instagram. They happen right here when I'm doing these podcasts. And for me, that is really helpful to me, as somebody who lives in Reno, and none of my real archaeology friends live in Reno. So, you guys are all remote, and I have to talk to you and interact with you in those ways. So I appreciate it in that sense. But I don't know. Look at the warning signs and maybe try to find a way to fill that hole. Maybe you need to move. Maybe you need to change careers. Maybe you're not happy. I don't know what the deal is, but not you, but people. Yeah.
Well, or you can always watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, season 5, episode 6, the game, where
The game.
Jean-Luc and everybody gets hooked on that 3D game that's basically like a VR thing.
Yeah, but actually stimulates your brain though. Yeah.
Yeah. So just watch
totally.
that, and that's essentially what's happening to you right now. Pull the phone out. I mean, you're basically, I guess I in that situation am what's the guy, Wesley Crusher, and
Yeah,
Ensign,
yeah.
trying to stop you guys all from just being zombies. And even Jean-Luc, our most powerful, has been taken over. Yeah, no, I mean, the first key is to acknowledge that there's a potential for you to get addicted to social media, right? You can get addicted to alcohol. You can get addicted to cigarettes and any kind of drug. I mean, they say that you can't get addicted to marijuana. Guess what? I live in California. It can happen, man. It can happen. So social media is no different game, right? The machine is set up to stimulate your brain. You're being stimulated whether you think you're strong enough to stop or not. Just know it. Start with the point that you know this stuff is happening to you so that you can make better decisions.
All right. I would also recommend if you don't watch Black Mirror on Netflix, you should, because it's an amazing series. But the Black Mirror episode in season 3, it's called Nosedive. I don't know what episode number that is, but the episode is called Nosedive, and it's all about how it's gone beyond social media addiction. It's social media rules your life. Like whatever your score is, people can give you points or take points away based on interactions with you, and it's real time. And that score you have basically on this social media site determines what kind of points you get on your mortgage, what kind of car you can rent, how much you pay for an airline ticket. I mean, it all of that comes into play. So anyway, we've gone
season 3.
I know it's crazy.
Season 3, episode 1.
Episode 1. There it is. There you go. So that was probably one of my favorite episodes, just because of the dark turn that it takes so quickly.
Because you're addicted, right?
Probably.
You can relate.
I just watch it over and over again.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time on Facebook talking about it.
That's right. All right. Well, we're going to end this. Thanks a lot, Bill, for coming on. If you've got any questions, send me an email. You can find Bill on Twitter. And Bill, what's your you want to put your email address out there? It's on the CRM Arc podcast anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, whatever. We'll have it in the show notes. So, but you can contact us to talk about this, but leave a comment wherever you heard this. And I want to know how you deal with social media addiction and tablets and tech in the field or whatever we talked about today. Leave us some comments and we'll have a chat about it. So, all right. Thanks a lot, Bill.
No problem. Adios.
Yep. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks for listening to the Archaeotech podcast. Links to items mentioned on the show are in the show notes at www.arcpodnet.com/archaeotech. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com and paul@lugal.com. Support the show by becoming a member at arcpodnet.com/members. The music is a song called Off Road and is license free from Apple. Thanks for listening.
This show is produced and recorded by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle, in Reno, Nevada, at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.arcpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to arcpodnet.com/members for more info.